Economics. Mr. Mkama, I'm back here with you to take you on revision for economics. Today, our focus area is paper one. So we'll try and push to see how far we can go. We are dealing with both macroeconomics and economic pursuit. Very important for you to remember that on the 31st of October, you will be sitting for your final examination of paper one in economics. It will be a morning session. Your paper is 2 hours, so be prepared. Hence, we are here to ensure that you are ready for the examination. Like I've said before, you might be familiar with me. I'm Mr. Mkama. Please join me. Let's see how far we can go and how can you benefit from today's lesson. The lesson objective, very simple, is to remind you of our content for paper one. We cover both macroeconomics and economic pursuits. The following are the very important dates for you to remember as you will be sitting for your final examination basically on economics. Let's see, the 31st I've mentioned of October. This is the one you will be writing your economics paper one. And as much as you want the best for yourself, we also want the best for you at all levels. And then on the 7th of November, as a candidate for economics, we'll be putting all tools down. You'll be writing your economics paper 2. Remember, this paper will be in the afternoon. It won't be a morning session. So a lot will be discussed on logistics for paper 2 for now. Let's see, and we focus on the most on paper 1. So the slide here comes. Then let's see what we have for you. After your paper 1, remember your paper 1 is not congested in terms of timetable because you'll be writing your English on the 30th. Then the following day it will be economics on the 31st. So it's not that much bad. But if you can check from the 3rd of November, this is the day I'm talking about. You candidates will be sitting for your maths. Department of Mathematics will be busy here with you. We'll be having mathematics, mathematical literacy, as well as technical maths on the 3rd. You will be asking yourself, why am I talking about maths? I'm talking about maths because psychologically it will disturb you. And then you have the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 4th and the 5th of November. On the 6th of November, you come back again, you do mathematics, mathematical literacy, as well as technical maths. So remember, this is the 6th of November. So you will spend your weekend trying to ensure that you deal with maths the way you want to, especially after writing your paper 1. You will ensure that you don't lose most in paper 2. So as economics teachers, you won't be having enough slot to deal with you in terms of revision because the main focus will be on your maths as well as technical maths. And then on the 7th of November, in the morning, from 9 o'clock, you will be writing your African languages. When I checked, I discovered that you'll be writing Zulu home language, you'll be writing Xhosa home language, you'll be writing Seswati and Ndebele. So you will be affected by this because immediately after maths, Friday maths, Monday maths, Tuesday morning, you will be doing your languages. That will be from 9. And then on the 2nd session or afternoon session, you will be coming in for economics. It is very important for you to know this. This is very much critical and hectic for you. So it is also important for you to get yourself prepared for both papers now, because if you don't do it now, you will be having a problem. If you can check before you write your economics paper 1, you only have 10 days remaining as from today. You have 10 days remaining. So if you can use these 10 days remaining effectively and efficiently, that will allow you to even get prepared for paper 2. If you can do that, then you will be able to win easily in both papers. Because like I've mentioned, there's a block of maths and maths lit, including technical maths, from the 3rd of November. You jump the weekend where you'll be busy with maths and maths lit, including tech maths. Then you jump to the Monday where you'll be writing your maths lit, and tech maths again. Then after that, you have languages in the morning, those that are doing these languages that I've mentioned. Then from then, immediately when you leave this exam center, maybe at 11:30 or 11 o'clock, you go out and prepare yourself for economics paper 2. So it is very important for you to really prepare now and ensure that this doesn't affect you. Instead, you become a winner. The strategy: prepare for both papers now so that the congested schedule does not affect economics paper 2. Remember, if you don't prepare now, you are thinking that you can only prepare for paper 2 the day before. It will be of a greater challenge because you won't be having enough time to prepare. By the way, remember, there is nothing new here. There is really nothing new. You have seated for your preparatory examination, and when you did that, you covered all topics. Right now, it's about you reminding yourself and also consolidating a certain information and knowledge so that you go to the final exam being well prepared. Even during the preparatory examination, you had the same schedule when it comes to maths and economics. So I don't think you will be facing that much of a challenge because there is nothing new. We just continue then until we sit with, we sit for the final paper, which is paper 2. So just keep on revising, keep on adding the value. Look, check your prelims papers and your answer will see what you did wrong. Follow the exam guideline. That's all. There's nothing much that you need to do because we have covered the same content for preparatory examination. We have covered the term 1 and term 2 content for your term 2 examination. So there's really nothing new. Everything should be accumulative now as you approach the final dates for your economics. As usual, this slide indicates the format of question papers and the distribution of questions. We are dealing with the paper 1 today, so I'll focus on this area, on this column A, then in the column B, which is here. Remember and be informed if you are not informed. Our paper is out of 150, and then 2 hours for the paper. And then we have main topics here. The main topic is macroeconomics, which is the topic that we covered in term 1. It contains the following topics, namely the circular flow, business cycles, public sector, and the foreign exchange market. Remember, this is a part of your question 1, question 2, a part of question 4 as well as question 5. So it is very important for you to know your strength, like I mentioned before on my previous lesson, that you must know your strength. Know where you can excel between macro and pursuit, and then have a right choice. As you go to the exam, you already know where your power comes. You already know what you can really do better when you compare macro and economic pursuits. The next one is economic pursuits, where we have protectionism and free trade. Remember, in there you have the likes of export promotion, import substitution. We have the likes of free trade and protectionism, and then we have economic integration and desirableness, also evaluation of policy. We have economic growth and development, and then we have industrial development policies. You have indicators. It's also very important for you not to confuse indicators by other indicators. If you come across the question, let's say in question 2, asking you about indicators, those indicators should be the likes of features underpinning forecasting. not social and economic indicators, because they don't belong in question 2. They belong in question 3 purely, question 6, and as a part of question 1, as a part of question 4. So do not confuse the system. If you come across the question about the indicators in question 2, those indicators do not include social and economic indicators. Those are the features underpinning forecasting. If you come across the question about indicators in question 5, be aware those indicators are features underpinning forecasting. They are not social and economic indicators. So always know your content where it belongs. It is very important for you to know that. So remember, this is a part of your question 1, economic pursuits. It's a part of your question 3. The entire question consists of economic pursuits. And then it's a part of question 4. It's about 20 marks of this topic. And then it's a part of question 6. The essay there of question 6 will be coming from one of these topics. So it is very important for you to prepare yourself efficiently. So each paper carries about 150 marks. Duration is 2 hours. Remember the importance of completing your question paper. It is very important to complete writing. So avoid investing most of your time writing about half a page for 2 marks. You are wasting your time and you will never recover if you are doing that. Ensure that you look at the mark allocation before you answer the question. The time you spend on the question should be in line or should be in proportion with the mark allocation for that particular question. Avoid wasting more time while rewards are less, or while there are less marks that you will achieve. So it is very important for you to know that. And then each paper comprises 6 questions divided into 3 sections. Remember, we have section A in question 1, section B, question 2, and question 2, question 3, question 4, and then section C, which is question 5 and 6. Also remember that we have a choice. In section A, it is all compulsory. Section B, question 2, 3, and 4, you choose 2 questions out of 40 marks. You leave 1 out. Avoid writing all questions, because if you do that, the marker will only mark the first. If ever you are cancelling the question, make it clear that the question has been cancelled. And then question 5 and 6, section C. Here we have 2 questions also. These questions can be, question 5 is from macroeconomics, question 6 is from economic pursuits. It is very important for you also not to write these 2 questions, but choose one as for instruction. Because if you write both of them, you will be consuming time, you will end up not completing all sections of the question. The question is then, how to achieve your target? How can you easily achieve your target as a grade 12 candidate? Be aware and be informed that if you get 0 or you achieve 0 to 44 marks out of 100, if that is your purely level 1. And also remember, before I continue, that we have already completed your SBA. Out of 850 marks, it's been converted to how many marks? To 200%, then converted to 25%. The 25% we are having is ready waiting for you. So you will be writing your final exam out of 75%. Let me tell you something. Let's say you didn't do well in your year mark. Really, you struggled, you got minimum marks in your class. Listen here, nothing is broken. Life goes on. You still have a lot to work for. If we talk about 75%, we mean you have a lot to work for. 75% is too much. So really, you haven't lost that much. You have a lot to work for. You have just lost a quarter. So with 75% to work for, candidates, you can still be a winner. You can come out being victorious in both papers, as long as we have your target clear. We have seen your mistake that you have done over the year mark from term 1 to term 3, and you are prepared to change, because remember, everything goes with attitude. If you give these papers and this subject a wrong attitude, you will end up copying the extract and data responses as answers, while everything will be wrong. But if you are prepared, you are willing to reason, you are willing to learn, you are willing to try and ensure that you understand easily, you will never go wrong. If we are struggling in this subject, we have a lot of marks that are the part of level 1. If we are struggling, we are catered for. So nothing is really broken now. We have lost out of 25. Then let's work on 75. Remember, you cannot achieve without putting more effort. It is very important that you put more effort on this work. Prepare yourself, consult where you need to consult. Then use previous question papers, assess yourself. Then you will win. It's all about your dedication. It is very important for you to also remember that if ever you are struggling with the subject, you need to allocate more time on the subject so that you can simply obtain the marks that you are willing to achieve. It is possible. Trust me, it is possible. We just need your dedication. We just need you to put more effort, have a working strategy, have a working study method, because one of the challenges is that you candidates use methods or strategies that are not working. So it is very important for you to know yourself now, know your capabilities now, and then be close to your teacher so that you can consult easily whenever we need to consult about the subject with these remaining days for revision. We know and I know you can do it. So never rule yourself out. If you have lost this 25%, you did not get 0, I know. You have 75% to work for. So please rebuild yourself. Forget about the past, because everything that is gone now is the past, which is earmarked. Rebuild yourself. Start over again. Work for 75%. It's possible. I know. And I believe and I trust you. You can do it with the greater effort and dedication. So be aware. We are always running away from getting level 1s. We know that. So if you get from 0 to 45, to 44, that is level 1. And then if you achieve from 45 out of 150, remember that is 30%. So it's level 2. What do we do then? We say 30 plus 15. So we go straight. We say 45 plus 15. So we have 45 plus 15, which goes straight now to 60, which is our level 3. So be aware and be informed. How do you get level 3? You must get 60 over 150. That will be your 40%, which is 60 marks. And then we go further. We say 60 plus 15 will go straight to 75. That is half. In that case, you will have balanced yourself. Because you get half, you lose half. So that is your 50%, which is level 4. Remember, getting most of these level 4, it will allow you to get your budget. And then we add 15 again from 75. It goes straight to 90. So we have 90 out of 150, which is our 60%. That is level 5. You can see that you are improving, but you just have to know your target and know how can you get these marks. And then from 90, we add 15. It goes straight to 105. Then 105 over 150, that gives us straight 70%. You are very close to level 7 now. That is your level 6. Then from then, we add 15. We'll be saying 105 plus 15, it goes straight to 120. You have achieved your level 7. That is 80. If you get 80 over 150, that gives you level 7. So any mark above, any mark above 120, 120 over 150 will still give you level 7. Like it's being mentioned here. This is how questions and topics are distributed. Remember, question 1 will be both macroeconomics and economic pursuit concepts. That's when now we will be dealing with 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. 1.1, we are given the question statement and 4 options. You choose one correct option. Remember, it is very important that you write a letter next to the question number. And do not write 2 letters, because the marker will mark the first letter. If ever we have cancelled something, make it clear that we have cancelled. Do not write an answer on top of another answer also, because we will forfeit marks. And then question 2, we have macroeconomics topics: circular flow, business cycles, public sector, and foreign exchange markets. Question number 3 is economic pursuits, where you come across protectionism and free trade, economic growth and development, regional development policies, as well as economic and social indicators. Question number 4 combines both, meaning it combines macroeconomics as well as economic pursuits. Remember that our question 5 is macroeconomics as an essay in section C. Our question 6 is economic pursuit. There we go. We have macroeconomic essays. So I know that you simply want to know what will appear We will never know what will appear or which essay will appear in the exam until we see the question paper after you have completed your examination on the day, meaning on the 31st. Since you complete your paper at 11 o'clock with concession coming in, let's say maybe it will be 15 minutes, that simply means that 11:30, then we will be able to see the question paper after you have seen. Remember, we are the main person in the situation now. We don't have access to question papers and will never have access to question papers. So we don't know which essay will appear. But one thing for sure, I can guarantee you. In question 5, one of these topics will appear in your section C, question 5. And then question 6, one of these topics will also appear. So prepare yourself. Know your strength. If you want to write question 5, do these essays thoroughly, and then you can go for question 5. If you want to write question 6 in your question paper, and then work on economic pursuits. These are the topics to cover so that you can answer your question 6. The topics the breakdown of topics can be discovered in your examination guideline of 2021. Be aware, topics on what we call on macroeconomics are found from page number 14 to page number 20. And then topics on economic pursuits can be found from page number 25 to page number 30 in your exam guideline for 2021. So let's check percentage contribution per section. Section A, those are short questions. We have question 1 is 30 marks, meaning is 20% out of your what do you call it, your 150 marks. Section B, you answer only 2 questions out of 3. Between question 2, 3, and 4, it's 80 marks. It contributes about 53.3%. And then section C, it's 40 marks. That's your section C. That's your essay between question 5 and question 6. It contributes about 26.7%. So how to score marks in section A? It is very easy. We have been talking about this. You must not leave anything unattended. Ensure that you answer all questions in there because it is compulsory. You don't have to write an answer on top of another answer. Let's say you are choosing the answer C. You cannot say C after that to say B. It won't be clear or visible. So ensure that to scratch the answer. If it's wrong, you write the correct one. Do not give the marker an option to say A or C. Now this thing is wrong. Ensure that you write one answer because we are required to give only one answer. Remember, your 1.1 is 16 marks. Each answer is 2 marks. Matching items 1.2. How can you score marks? Look at the column A concept and try to derive the answer before you look for the given answers in the given options. Use the elimination method, meaning you start with how to know before you look at what you don't know. Answer those questions that we are sure they are correct. Then you look at the remaining option. And then I just mentioned this. Do not just guess the answer. Focus on what you know first. After eliminating, you surely have few options remaining. Relate again until you have a column B response remaining, which is expected to be wrong. So remember, one answer will be wrong, they're guaranteed. Remember that it is highly possible that choosing one answer wrong in this section or in this part result to 2 answers being wrong. So it is very important for you to know that also. Do not leave anything or any question or option unmatched. You must match both options between column A and column B. Remember, it went 8 marks in. Each answer is 1 mark. Terminology, that is 1.3, the one that we are afraid of the most, but it's not a challenge anymore. Read each description with understanding before you provide the term. Do not leave blank spaces, answer everything. And then also do not give an option, but provide one term. If you think of 2 concepts, provide 1. Do not provide 2, because now if you give 2, you are giving a marker an option. That will be wrong. Do not use abbreviations or acronyms. It is very important that you don't abbreviate. If ever the answer is BOP or balance of payment, it should be written as balance of payment, not BOP in this section, because abbreviations or acronyms are not allowed. Know your terminology per topic. Use Mind the Gap, remember. Mind the Gap has some terminologies or concepts per topic. So do a self-study practice. Use previous question papers to answer, then verify by looking at the memorandum to see if you got them wrong. If you can win in section A, trust me, it will be easy for you to dominate the question paper, even if section C and B are the challenge. But if you can win or get 25 in section A, automatically we are gone, because we'll be getting marks in section B and section C. Use Mind the Gap terminology to provide a per topic. I've mentioned that. So 1.1, this time we have exposed it, and then 1.2 also. Let's look at terminologies in 1.3. Give one term for each of the following description. Write only the term next to the question number. For instance, from 1.3.1 to 1.3.6 in the answer book. Abbreviation acronyms. It is very important for you to read this instruction, and examples will not be accepted. So 1.3.1, the initial change in spending produces proportionately larger increase in national income. If ever we inject less money but we get more money after all, that is automatically a multiplier effect. At the point where the economic contraction is at its lowest. So you know those points, we have 2 points, the top or the higher turning point and the bottom turning point. So the bottom one indicates the lowest economic activities, which goes straight to trap. A transfer of functions and ownership from the public sector to the private sector. It is very important for you also to touch on the privatization and nationalization, so that if ever a question comes in, you can be able to answer the question. An increase in the price of currency in terms of another country's currency due to market forces. Also remember this, whenever the currency is increasing related to another country's currency because of market forces. Remember, if we talk of market forces now, that means we are not talking about the revaluation or devaluation. We are on the side of appreciation and depreciation because they are enforced by market forces. The movement of imports and exports between countries without any restrictions. And then the social indicators that relate to the size of the country's population. So if you can check, as we match 1.3.1 to 1.3.1, it is the multiplier effect. I know that sometimes the multiplier definition comes straight to this definition, but we know that the multiplier occurs when someone's spending becomes someone's income. But if ever the smaller initial expenditure produces the large income, that is the multiplier effect. And then we have trap in the 1.3.2. 1.3.3 is a privatization because we are moving ownership of assets from public sector to the private sector. Appreciation, that when the value of the country increase compared to another country's currency because of market forces. The free trade, where countries are trading with one another without any trade restrictions that are imposed. And then if we talk about indicators that relates to population growth or size of the country, those are demographics. We continue with the terminologies. Same instruction, estimating or forecasting something unknown for facts, from facts and information that are known. So if we are estimating something that is unknown using what is known, we are extrapolating. That is known to be extrapolation. Remember, to forecast is to anticipate or estimate something. It is very important for you to remember that, especially for if ever we come across a question like, how can economists use leading indicators to forecast economy? It is very important for you to remember that. An estimate of income and expenditure for a 3-year period during budgeting process. So when we estimate both income and expenditure, check in the public sector where you have your MTPPS and your MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework. If you say MTEF, it will be wrong. Remember, we don't take those shortened answers such as abbreviation or acronyms. A trade policy that promotes the production of goods domestically rather than importing them. Restriction of the quantity of imports allowed into a country. Remember, we talk about import substitution here. In this case, these are the import quotas or import limits. The compensation of citizens who lost their land because of discriminatory apartheid laws. It is very important for you to bring back the content here under land reform to say we have a land redistribution and land restitution. But if it's a compensation where people are given money, that's a land restitution. If people are giving back their land, that's a land redistribution. Policies that are aimed at increasing the economic livelihood of specific areas. So let's check now. There we go. We have extrapolation because we are focusing on estimating what can happen in the economy using the known fact or known information. It's a medium-term expenditure framework. MTEF is wrong, but it's a medium-term expenditure framework. And then 1.3.3 is an import substitution because it mainly encourages the production of locally produced goods and services than having to import those goods. And then those goods that are formerly imported will be produced locally. And then we have import quotas, or which can also be import limits, whereby the state intervened by putting some limits on the size or quantity of goods to be imported. Remember that these import quotas can either be discriminatory or they can be general. If they are discriminating, that means countries are not treated in the same way based on those import limits or import quotas. Land restitution, that's when the land, people that lost their land forcefully because of apartheid laws are given money as a compensation. Regional development policies are aiming at improving economic livelihood of underdeveloped areas. Then we continue. How can you approach the question paper? Then you must read question with understanding before attempting to answer. It is very important not to read just one concept. Read the whole question with understanding. Avoid an early excitement when you are reading the question. Read the whole question statement with understanding. I'm saying this again because if you are affected by early excitement, you will get answers that are very simple wrong. For instance, this is the question. Mention any two leakages in the circular flow. You simply mention injections because of an early excitement and also of undermining the question. Also, I always make one simple example. You go straight to your section C. The question is clear. Discuss all features underpinning forecasting, excluding indicator. You simply start by writing indicator. You did not read the question thoroughly with understanding. You only read it once. You were happy because of the topic that you saw in the section C, then you answer. We have a new problem then that you guys have been presenting. You come across the question saying discuss in detail reasons for public sector failure, linking them to the public sector provision. You come across market failures. Come on, you can't do that. The market failure is your paper 2. Please. It is very important for you to know your content, to know where your content belongs. You can't be mixing both paper 1 and paper 2 now. You should be a master in terms of that. So it is very important for you to avoid mixing papers. Please do something right in there because you will be losing marks unnecessarily. You can't be discussing paper 2 irrelevantly in paper 1. It is very important for you to know where the topic belongs and where it doesn't belong. Do not guess section A answers, understand each question statement and relate to the given options. Guessing will always give you wrong answers. You won't even be able to give a reasoning for that answer that you have just chosen over guessing. Read data response with understanding while highlighting important information, then contextualize it before you make sense to questions. Improve your ability to link because the question paper requires most of linking. So it's mostly applications in the question paper. It's not always about the content knowledge. Content knowledge assists you to be able to synthesize, to reason over the question paper. So it is very important that you integrate your content knowledge as well as the real world knowledge. And then be smart when answering application questions. Do not just go and answer because we'll end up providing the content knowledge while the content, the information required or the content required is basic critical. We have to analyze. The answer cannot be found in any textbook. It needs you to synthesize and make sense. Answer in full sentences on questions that require explanation. Do not just list because we'll be losing marks. Answer in full sentence. Let mark allocation determine time you can spend on each subheading. Do not just answer maybe half a page for 4 marks or for 8 marks. Ensure that you write in point form but in full sentences. The time you spend in there should be in proportion to the allocation of marks that are given to that particular question. Avoid leaving blank spaces in section A and all other sections, not basically in section A. I mean all other sections you must avoid leaving spaces because each and every question you choose consists of certain number of marks. Section A is 30, section B, question 2 is 40, question 3 is 40, question 4 is 40. So if you choose the question, be aware and ensure that you are able to answer those questions. Avoid answering all 3 questions in section B. We have seen some of you choose question 2, you answer what you know. After that, you leave it, you go to question 3, you answer what you know. Then you leave to question 4, you answer. No, avoid doing that. The marker will only mark question 2 and question 3. Question 4 will be left unattended. So do not do that. Ensure that you answer questions accordingly. Do not skip questions because you think you don't know them. Answer the questions because you have chosen to answer that particular question. Avoid answering both questions in section C. You will be wasting your time. Remember there are 2 essays in section C, question 5 and 6. Answer only 1 question. And do not steal additional part for question 6 and put it in question 5. that will be wrong. Do not steal the original part for question 5 too and take it to question 6 because you think it won't be marked. If you choose question 5, answer in there, write question 5 under section C. Answer all of those 2 questions provided. Do not switch additional parts. That will be wrong. We have seen it happening and people have been taking chances. It won't be marked because we are only given a chance to answer 1 of 2 questions between question 5 and question 6. Study strategies or methods. Allocate study time according to your performance and your target. You know, if you are targeting to get level 7 and you know that you qualified with 89, it is very important for you to ensure that you allocate time to ensure so that you can be able to achieve that distinction. If you are struggling at level 1 in economics, you must ensure that you plan your time accordingly, become more efficient, give the subject more time, but ensure that you consult for help so that you will be able to overcome the question paper. Study and assess yourself before using previous question papers. So you have a target that you have set, so ensure that that target is met, and then you use question papers after that. Make use of examination guidelines while studying each topic. Exam guideline can guide you on those topics. Mostly, we see some questions from exam guideline coming in, especially for higher order. So it is very important for you to understand the exam guideline and use it as a guideline for you as you study. Use NSC assessment tools to evaluate your study outcomes. In this case, I'm talking about using memorandums in there. They're discoverable. You can find them. Just check online and check question papers in the Department of Education. You will choose the year you want. Choose the question paper for economics you want. If it's a supplementary exam for June or final exam, it's up to you. Let your study expose your content weaknesses. Do not be frustrated, but use your winning methods. It can happen that you are trying to study, but you are frustrated. That simply means you are not familiar with studying. So you must ensure that you try your best so that it ends up going into your mind. Then you will be ready for examination. If we are struggling, focus in one main topic between macroeconomics and economic pursuits and study it efficiently. But do not leave out the second topic because you need it for section A as well as question 4. So we know that some of you are ready. You are prepared to go for obvious question 1 is compulsory. You are prepared to go for maybe question 2 and question 4. But ensure that you study the macro efficiently and you also study economic, economic pursuits so that you will be able to answer even question 4. For question 5, it's macro win. So now I have a problem. I'm struggling. What can I do? There is not enough time to study everything. Level 1 learner, do your macroeconomics topic thoroughly and pass paper 1. It is very important for you to know your weaknesses. If you are pretending to know, you are pretending to know economics, but your year mark doesn't reflect that. You need to put your pride aside and focus. You need to put your pride aside and focus. It's very important that you consult to people that can assist you. Friend those people that are doing better, that can support and assist you. Even to those that are well informed about economics, you are a level 7 student. You can also assist other learners in your class. Remember, as you teach this content to those learners, surely knowing that is correct, you become a master of it. So it will be easy for you to always remember because we have become a teacher for once teaching other candidates. Do not hide information. If people are crying for help while they are informed that you are also informed about the subject, assist them. That will make you a master of the subject. You will never have to spend more time on studying because we are already holding on the content. So please, let's share information if we have time to those people that are in need. To those that are in need but they don't want to go out and ask for help, put that pride aside because the mark you will be achieving here in these papers will be reflecting you in your examination certificate. Have a good understanding of economic pursuits topic to answer question 1 and also half of question 4. It is very important for you. Do one microeconomics or economic issues topics thoroughly and pass your paper 2. And your paper 2. This is your paper 2 because it's macro and economic issues. If you are dealing with paper 2, for now we are focusing on paper 1. Have a good understanding of the other topic to answer question 1. Half of question 4 is I've mentioned that. And then level 2. You must get, to get level 2, you must get 45 over 150, but then it is very important. It must depend on then your year mark. Your year mark is very important. So it is also important for you to push yourself after looking at your year mark. Out of 25, how many marks did you get? That is something that should be encouraging you, because it will allow you to set your target. It will allow you to have a working timetable and working strategies. Then you can go for it. Get the minimum of 25 in section A, then you escape level 1. Level 1 candidates, we are frustrated by those level 1s. We don't like them. Please, man, listen to us. Ensure that you invest most of your knowledge, most of your time in section A if you are starting the most. And then you get that 25 or 30 over 30. Then you can move to other sections to collect those marks. You will never fail if you can have a strategy on the marks that you are willing to achieve per section. That will be pushing you. So the following are the short questions in section B. Name any 2 types of action rate systems. If the question says any 2, that means there are more than 2. Keep that in your mind, and it is very important for you to list only 2. Look at this: 2 times 1. This simply means that 2 answers, each answer worth 1 mark, then it's 2. Do not just list them all, just list 2. It is very important for you to do that. We have a free floating action rate. Remember that action rate system, for which its value is determined by market forces, demand and supply. The government does not intervene to determine the value of this currency. Determined by the effect of market forces, demand and supply. No one can influence it directly. And then fixed action rate. In this case, we talk about the currency or action rate for which its value is determined by the government intervention. The government is in full control of this kind of the action rate. And then we have the floating managed action rate, or it's a controlled floating action rate or the managed floating action rate. Don't confuse this action rate to the first one. The managed floating action rate indicates that it is allowed to float from one number to another. However, it floats or appreciate or depreciate within limits. For instance, the government can intervene by saying South African rand against the dollar can only move between 8 rand equals to $1 to 12 rand is to $1. So that means as our currency moves, it can only move between 8 rand to the dollar or 12 rand to the dollar. It cannot go beyond 12, cannot go below 8. That means that currency can appreciate and depreciate, but within limits that have been predetermined by the government and the central bank. So know that I'm talking about the managed or controlled floating exchange rate. It is controlled. So if one can say explain it or briefly discuss it, that simply means you will be indicating that the currency can appreciate and depreciate, but that happens within limits. Also, you tell that market forces do exist to determine the value of the currency as it appreciates and depreciates. However, there is also the government intervention to determine the minimum and the maximum limit of fluctuation of the currency, of appreciation and depreciation. That's how you can give the difference. That simply means the managed floating comprises both government intervention as well as the market forces. So if you can come across the question for 8 marks or for 4 marks, it's very important for you to be able to explain. Name 2 types of business cycles. Remember, we have 2. Let's see. Okay, name any. Let me say any 2 here. There is a mistake. Any 2 because we have 7 of them. We have the kitchen cycles. We have the juggler cycles. We have Kuznets, Kondraty. We have demand-driven business cycle, supply-driven business cycle, as well as the political. It is very important for you to be able to explain these types of the business, especially the first 4, based on the nature of the investment and also the duration or period that can be taken by the site to be a full cycle, because you can come across that in your section A where you have to provide the term or concept of such of the following: can be kitchen, juggler, Kuznets or Kondraty. So it is important for you to know the duration and the nature of the investment that is relevant in that kind of the business cycle. Name any 2 reasons for South Africans to demand the foreign currency. Why should we demand the foreign currency? We want to pay for imports from other countries. We want to invest abroad, either direct or indirectly. We want to pay dividends for portfolio investors. And then we want to tour abroad as for the part of outbound tourism. We want to pay our foreign debts. Maybe we have borrowed money from foreign banks, then we need to pay those debts. So then we continue. Name 2 types of consumption that occur on the multiplier. So we have only 2. That's why we did not say any. We have only 2. It's an induced as well as autonomous. Remember, it is very important for you to be able to distinguish between the 2 for the sake of you getting marks in section B. A question can simply pop in to say distinguish between induced consumption as well as autonomous consumption. Remember, an induced consumption or expenditure is, is an expenditure that is dependent on income. One must be having income for one to spend on goods and services. So it is induced. It is dependent on income. Cannot occur without income. Then autonomous. If you talk of the autonomous expenditure or consumption, that consumption that is independent of income. It doesn't matter, even if you don't have income, you can still spend. That is known to be autonomous consumption or autonomous spending. Name two international organizations that combine indicators to compare the world economic and social performance. So in that case, we talk about mainly three organizations, namely the World Bank, United Nations, as well as International Monetary Fund. Name two strategies to regional development. There are only two. NRDS as well as IMS, National Research Development Strategy, as well as Industrial Manufacturing Strategy. We continue. Now we go straight to the middle order where you have to link. So I won't do much of this, but it is very important for you to know how to link. How does export promotion affect the balance of payments of the country? So you look at this now. Export promotion, that's a policy by the government aiming at promoting local firms to produce more goods and services for foreign markets. So that simply means for local firms are encouraged to produce more goods to be sold abroad. That means exports will be increasing. So if ever there is an export promotion policy, that means local businesses are being supported through either incentives or subsidies so that they can produce more goods and services for foreign markets. So what happens? That can lead to more imported goods and services, and that can result to maybe imports being more than, exports being more than imports. If exports are more than imports, that simply means there can be a trade surplus that can favor the balance of payments. So that analysis is very important. How can export promotion affect BOP or balance of payments? You are linking these two concepts now in these two topics. You want to discover how can if ever the state intervene by promoting export, how can that affect BOP? Export might increase faster than imports, and that can lead to the trade surplus because exports will be greater than imports. So that's how you should be linking. Understanding is very important here. You need your content knowledge, but you must be able to apply and link. Export promotion increases the volume of export, resulting to high inflow of foreign currencies. If exports increase faster than imports, the trade deficit on the BOP will be reduced, or that can lead to trade surplus. How does the increase in imports affect the economy? So look at this. We are not talking about the decrease in imports. We are talking about an increase in imports affecting the economy. Look at the three. Increase in imports. These are relating now. Imports are increasing. Then how will that affect the economy? Remember, if ever imports are increasing, that can lead to economy being affected negatively, because as we demand most of imported goods and services, especially final goods or consumer goods, local firms will be discouraged from producing those goods and services, and then our productivity will decrease in the country. However, if there's an increase in imports for capital goods, that will mean our economy might grow in the near future, because if firms are investing more on importing capital goods, that will mean manufacturing sector will be functioning faster than before. So that can increase our country's productivity and increase the economy. So you need to be very careful when you answer this kind of the question, because it have the positive one and the negative one. The positive one, the increase in imported capital goods can lead to the greater production in the near future, because it becomes a leading indicator, by the way. So that can lead to the increase in manufacturing in the near future is positive. The negative, the increase in imported consumer goods and services can result to local firms being discouraged to produce those goods and services, because local consumers are demanding the most of imported goods, which can decrease the productivity. Also, as imports increases faster, that can lead to a BOP being affected negatively. A rising level of imports called trade deficit in the balance of payments. An increase in imports can distort the country's balance of trade and devalue the currency. Why are special economic zones important in the economy? Remember, special economic zones refer to industrial development in there. Special economic zones refer to geographical areas that have been set aside to perform the specific economic activities. Note the following. Special economic zones can be found or can be discovered anywhere in a country. They are not mainly located nearby seaports and airports, but they can be located anywhere. And also, they attract both local-based businesses and also exporting-based businesses. Also, they can also attract foreign direct investment. They are also very good because they provide the wide range of incentives that can benefit those businesses, investing in those areas. So they are very important in the economy. They also promote and attract small businesses. Special economic zones have connectivity to both suppliers and potential markets, whilst promoting export-oriented industries and local integration. They stimulate employment, industry growth, and social development. And then, what is the relationship between real flow and money flow in the economy? Remember, in this case, we are straight in the what we call circular flow. The real flow and the money flows. How do they relate? Remember, we refer to the real flow is the flow of goods, services, and products and factors of production. Money flow is the flow of money, which can be what we call wages and salaries, remuneration, and can also be all other remunerations in terms of wages, salaries, rent, profits, and interest. Can also be payment for import, can also be expenditure, can also be the flow of savings, the flow of taxes, as well as financial investments within the circular flow. So how do they link now? Not the difference in this case, the relationship. Remember that one have to sell his or her factors of production to earn income. Income doesn't just come. So one have to own the factor of production, then sell those factors of production. After selling them, they just get money. So there's a huge link in there. Money flows provide remunerations and funding to the real flow variables. How does an excessive increase in taxation affect government tax revenue? If ever taxation is increasing faster, how can that affect tax revenue? So in this case, if it's increasing at the normal rate, it can increase tax revenues. But if it increases aggressively, it can decrease tax revenues because businesses can be involved in what you call tax evasion, which is known as an illegal practice performed by businesses by refraining to disclose their sources of income. And then they can also be involved in tax avoidance, which is legal, by the way, by doing some of the job that should be done by the government so that they can be exempted from paying a certain percentage of tax. Also, employees can choose not to work if ever the income they earn mostly go straight to taxation. So it can lead to tax evasion and lower tax revenues if ever it's increasing aggressively. Excessive increase in tax rate decrease government tax revenues. Individuals and businesses may not disclose their sources of income to SARS or the government, which is known as tax evasion. High value added tax increase selling price and revenues earned by the government. So if ever VAT increase faster, we know that the demand for goods, people will always demand goods for the basic living. Then that can increase tax revenues to the government because they must demand goods for living. What is the negative impact of excessive access to credit in the economy? In this case, we are talking about what we call moral suasion. If ever there is more credit creation in the economy, that will mean there will be more demand for goods and services. Finding that the demand is increasing more than the supply, that can lead to the demand pull inflation in the economy. High level of credit creation increase money supply and aggregate demand. Since people are always tempted to spend when they are holding on money. Remember, they even spend the money they don't even have if credit is extended. If ever Reserve Bank ease or relaxes moral persuasion, that can lead to people demanding more goods and services, only to find that there is less supply for goods and services, resulting to the demand pull inflation. Why do developed countries favor the idea of the free trade? We know that we have developed countries and developing countries, which is a part of the north, the south, the divide. Developed countries always favor the idea of the free trade because, remember, they have most of multinational industries that can be located anywhere in the world, which can benefit them because they can take over of the global economies. Free trade increases competition, and this encourages innovation, especially in developed countries that have the know-how. Developed countries have free access to resources. Worldwide needed for mass production and expanded markets. Developed countries benefit from trade agreements with poor countries, which always favor them. Free trade reduces regulations on the protection of labor, environment, and consumers, meaning they can simply exploit our natural resources without restrictions. Free trade increases power of multinationals, so they get a chance to overcome or to overpower all other infant industries across the world, because they have this thing that we call economies of scale, since they can produce more goods and sell at the lower cost due to the fact that they are very much innovative. They have high level of labor expertise, and then they have high level of capital. Then their technology level is very, very high. So they always have an advantage because they produce more goods at the lower cost per unit, which is known to be economies of scale. And then economic pursuits. What is the importance of public goods and services in the economy? So this is just the continuity. Why are public goods and services important in the economy? So this was coming from the mock examination. So this is a part of the macroeconomics. So what is the importance of public goods and services in the economy? Remember, some people cannot afford to buy all goods and services in the economy. So if all goods can be provided by the private sector, the market or the private sector only produce goods for those who can afford. Those who cannot afford go without those goods and services. And although some goods are very important for the social welfare and social well-being, so the government intervened to produce and provide public goods and services so that it can be able to reduce economic inequalities. For those people who cannot afford from the private sector can be able to access those goods because they are important for the social well-being and the social welfare. So if ever public goods and services are provided, they reduce inequality that exists in the economy. Because some people cannot afford those goods from the private sector, then the government may be providing of those goods. For instance, education is provided by the government highly, so people are not willing to pay for the education. So if ever it was only provided by the private sector, it was going to be difficult for everyone to access education because it is very much expensive from the private sector. Then the government have to intervene and make provisions. Healthcare is also provided by the government the most, because not everybody can afford the private medication. You talk about roads. Imagine if roads were provided by the private sector, people would be paying for stepping on the road. So in that case, the government intervened because it is difficult to derive the social benefit that have been achieved in those goods and services. The provision of infrastructure attract investors and improve economic and social welfare. Public goods and services reduce economic inequalities and improve economic participation of the marginalized. Answers to this question must be in full sentences. Remember, that is how, why, what. Remember, you can't come across 2.1.2 saying define. You can't be defining something there. It's what, how, and how. So it is very important for you to know what kind of the question should I expect in this question. Don't just go to the question paper being well structured yourself. Know that if I'm dealing with 4.1.1, it's a listing. 4.1.2, I have to explain and link. That is the application. 4.2, it's a data response. You know the sequence. 4.2.1, it's a identification, listing, mention, or whatever. It's a lower order. 4.2.2 is the same thing. 4.2.3, you know, it's a definition. 4.2.4, application. 4.2.5, application. If you go to 4.4, you go straight to the content knowledge where you briefly discuss. That's the content knowledge. The answers can be found in your textbook or your notes. But 4.5, in that case, you have to think deeper. You have to synthesize. You have to evaluate. You have to know that so that your attitude channel you to the right direction. But if you go there without even knowing those things, you will be making wrong decisions for the examination. Data response examples. So we are given the graph here. It is very important for you to be able to analyze the graph. So this is the multiplier. Remember, it is the income. This is the expenditure. And then you have your 45-degree line, which indicates equality in that, because whenever it intersects with the investment line or consumption line, you come across income being equal to expenditure or expenditure being equal to income. Any point of intersection there is an E, so there's an equilibrium. Let's check now. Our original is E0 equal to 10 plus 0.51. So this 10 come from this 10. So this 10 indicates that this is the amount of money. Then that indicates our MPS. And then if ever there's more investment or injection, the line will be moving up. So it goes up like this. You can see. That's why we have E1 there. And then we have E1 equal to 30 plus 0.51. That is 30 in there. Then 0.5 is your what you call it, is your MPC. So it is very important that if they say identify the MPC, you don't write the whole equation. I mean the whole consumption function. You only write 0.5 it's 0.5, 0.8 if it's 0.8. It is very important for you to do that. If ever they say provide or give the MPS, you simply have to say 1 minus the given number there. You will be getting the difference, which will be your MPS. So these are the questions. Or also, it's important for you to analyze this. You see the income has increased, expenditure has increased. Now you must be able to derive the change. 60 minus 20, and then you get your 40. And then also 60 minus what do you call it? So expenditure 60 minus 20, you get your 40. So it's very important that you are able to do those things here in case you are given a chance to calculate the multiplier using the change in income over change in expenditure or change in injections. Identify the original consumption function on the graph. Give the marginal propensity to consume MPC. Briefly describe or define the term induced consumption. How does the increase in marginal rate to tax influence the value of the multiplier? So MRT, that's when now we talk about involvement of government in our multiplier, where there is a 3-sector model now. So if ever taxation is being involved, multiplier will always decline. Remember that. Using the formula change in income over change in change in injection, calculate the value of the multiplier for the above for all calculation. Then let's look at the possible answers in there. Identification. There you see E0 equal to 10 plus 0.5y, that's your consumption function. And then give the marginal propensity to consume, that is your 0.5. And then briefly describe the term induced consumption. Then induced consumption that depends on the level of income. And then how does the increase in marginal rate to tax influence the value of the multiplier? It will decrease the value of the multiplier due to decrease in the marginal propensity to consume. Remember, if tax increase, and then that will mean there will be less consumption, then MPC will decline, and then that will be leading to what? To the decrease in the value of the multiplier or the multiplier size. Using the formula calculate, then we see it was change in y over change in j. How much was the change? 60 minus 20, and then it gives us 40, and then we have 30 minus 10, it gave us what we call 20, then we divide, we got 2. And then we are given data response here on Human Development Index. Here we have Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Hong Kong, Australia, and South Africa. So as for 2021 value of HDI, we had 0.962 as for Switzerland, 0.961, so it is declining, and then 0.959, 0.952, 0.951, 0.713, that is South Africa, adapted from http as africacheck.org. Then let's look at questions now. You already know the one with the highest, you already know the lowest as South Africa. You must know then now what can cause Human Development Index to either increase or decrease as for the development. And then let's see, identify the country with the highest Human Development Index from the table above. You can see, name any one measure of economic development. Therefore, briefly describe the term North-South divide. We know that. What effect will focusing on primary industries have on the economy's development? Economies of developing countries, if they focus the most on primary sector, will they be able to improve? You know the answer. How do countries with high economic divide negatively impact countries with the low economic divide? So we check how do developed countries affect developing countries. Switzerland is the answer in the real GDP, education, life expectancy, standard of living. Definition of North-South divide. It's a non-geographical line that divides countries according to their wealth and development. Countries in the north are wealthy and those in the south are not wealthy, they are poor. So actually it's a wealth stratification or division between developed and developing nations. We continue. What effect will focus on primary sector? Primary industries are not reliable since they can easily be affected by the supply shocks. This makes countries who rely on them to be volatile, meaning they cannot really be consistent. They can simply, at some time, find themselves not being productive that much because they depend on what can be depleted, what can be affected by even climate condition. And then primary goods do not yield much profit as they are still in their raw material stage. This makes these economies to have slow economic growth. So we know that they have a strategic value. It depends on the usage. If they are not well given the value, they are not well value added, they become more cheap to those other countries, which means they will not be receiving more revenues from selling their raw materials. How do countries with high economic divide negatively impact countries with the low economic divide? More developed countries have the tendency of dumping unwanted goods to low developed countries, thereby undermining their industrial development. And then most developed economies are characterized by multinational industries who dominate international markets that blocks or shut the door for developing industries from the entire world. Those that are still developing or infants, they find it difficult to compete with multinationals because multinationals produce at the economies of scale, while infant industries produce at the diseconomies of scale. So that will be leading to them selling goods at the higher cost and producing less output, and that will lead to them not be willing to compete with multinational industries because they will be driving them out of the market since they are not even well subsidized by their government. And then most developed countries are guilty of exploiting resources from less developed countries to meet their high demand. So natural resources, they mainly obtain natural resources from developing countries for them to transform them to finished goods. So developing countries find themselves affected because they are manipulated. These goods that they sell as natural resources, they sell them at the lower cost and receive them back as finished goods at the higher cost, which is believed to be manipulation economically. Then Atlantic Special Economic Zone. And then here we are keeping the SEZ straight on the industrial development. So it's SEZ. It's part of the city hub in Atlantis. Situated in the west coast of SEZ, capitalizes on the province already booming renewable energy and green technology sector. A wind tower manufacturer, Custom Renewable Industries, has already invested 3 million and is in full scale production, adapted from www.thedti.gov.org. Let's look at questions here. Identify the state-owned enterprise shown above, and then name the institution regulates the price of electricity in South Africa. And then we have briefly described the term budget. So Eskom is this SOE, and then National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, is the answer. Budget, and then explain the impact of high state debts on the provisioning of public goods and services. A high state debt hinders the ability of the government to provide public goods and services. Instead, focus on repaying debt. So the government cannot invest on providing, but can focus on paying back those debts because they have high level of interest rate. With the existing debt, the government is unable to borrow from the same institution to provide social services. How can South African government improve accountability from public servants? Remember, accountability is a thorny issue on the public sector because it is difficult for the government to hold people accountable or officials accountable because the accountability in the public sector is difficult. It is too complex. Public sector is too complex to hold those people accountable easily. Accountability can be upheld by holding accountability sessions where public servants account for their decisions in terms of income and expenditure. Reporting to the Auditor General can improve accountability and promote service delivery. Control by departmental heads can make public servants to focus on improving their level of competency. Putting into place a quality management system, meaning ensuring quality assurance, can ensure that people are held accountable, or public servants are held accountable for their decisions. Then you have data response on social indicators here. I'm hungry. You can see here that is the part of malnutrition. Which type of social indicator is depicted on here above? Identify the child malnutrition illustrated on the picture. Briefly describe the term infant mortality. Briefly explain why obesity in children is associated with other diseases. What impact can poor services have on well-being of people? Let's look at questions and answers. Then the first answer is nutrition, health, and malnutrition. Identify the child malnutrition illustrated in the picture above. Weight, for age or underweight. Briefly describe the term infant mortality. it refers to the mortality, refers to the measure of a number of infants who die before reaching 1 year. Why is obesity in children associated with other diseases? Being overweight or obese in early childhood increase the risk of, for adult obesity and is associated with health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and osteoporosis. So if ever one is overweight at the early age, it becomes a problem because it can attract more diseases. And these are something that have been mentioned that can be attracted by the obesity or being overweight at the early age. What impact can poor service have on the well-being of people? If ever there are poor service being delivered, how can that affect the well-being or the welfare of people? Poor service delivery negatively affect the enhancement of the citizens' standard of living as well as their economic development. Poor access to electricity for electrical appliances usage reduces the chances of being technically advanced. Poor access to clean running water increases the likelihood of human beings suffering from diseases such as cholera, malaria, and other related diseases. And then we had another data response on what? On the business cycle. This is Phillips curve. Remember, it's a natural unemployment. Natural unemployment, if ever inflation increases, unemployment decrease. If ever unemployment increase, inflation decrease. Remember that. Identify any one point in the graph that shows the natural unemployment rate. There it's being shown. Name the business cycle turning point during which inflation is at the highest, that is speak. Briefly describe the term business cycle, and then explain the reason for the curve. For the curve to shift from PC to PC1. What causes this movement? Remember, those are supply side policies. Why is the relationship between inflation and unemployment regarded as inverse? Inverse means negative or opposite. Use the information in the graph to motivate your answer. Let's look at answers. And then D and F are the natural unemployment points in there. That is peak, like it was mentioned. Business cycle refer to the increase or decrease of economic activities, upswing or downswing, fluctuation, ups and downs, etc. And then explain the reason. Implementing the supply side policies can shift the PC. Improving labor skills and human resource development can increase the labor productivity also, and can also shift the Phillips curve. Why is relationship here regarded as inverse? When the rate of unemployment decreases, the rate of inflation increases, meaning there will be more employment and more demand, which will be increasing inflation. When unemployment increases, there is less employment. Inflation decreases because there will be less employment, meaning there will be less income and less demand for goods and services. On the Phillips curve, when the unemployment is low at 10%, the rate of inflation is high at 9%, meaning there is high level of employment and more demand for goods and services because more money is chasing few goods. When the state of unemployment increased to 20%, that means the inflation rate starts to decrease because people are unemployed, there is less money available, there is less demand for goods and services. Then we are given terms of trade here. Remember, terms of trade refer to the index of the ratio of import prices to the ratio of export prices. So we check July 2021 and 2022. Let's see if the trend is increasing or decreasing. In terms of import prices are increasing because we can see 123, 134.2, 160, so they are increasing. And then this other side, exports, 146, 168, 176, they are also increasing. Given the answer here, terms of trade are 119.4 for 2020 July, and then there's dash here 109.9 for 2022, which is July. Then let's look at the question. Identify the institution responsible to prepare this information. South African Reserve Bank is given there. Give one reason for the increase in import prices during July 2022. It can be any answer you can think of. It can be caused by the depreciation of the currency. If our currency is devalued, obviously import price will be increasing. And then briefly explain briefly describe the term balance of payments. And then also we continue briefly explain effects of the degradation in the terms of trade have on a country's welfare. If ever they decline, there will be less import earnings, and that will lead to less income being earned by South Africa and also reduce national income. And there will be less money available to provide for public goods and services, and also to improve job opportunities as well as all other opportunities in the economy. So, and then calculate the terms of trade. Let's look at possible answers in here. South African Reserve Bank is the answer for this question. Weaker domestic currency, increasing global prices, increasing demand for imported capital goods, increasing import tariffs. define BOP, bonds of payment, as a systematic book of records that keep transition between countries as they trade with one another, and then explain the effect of decline or degradation of terms of trade. It will lead to the decline in living standards as foreign currency earnings are relatively less. They decline. Imported consumer goods will be more expensive. And the decline in the terms of trade shows that the country is poor. More capital is flowing out of the country to pay for imports. Calculation, where terms of trade equal to index of export prices to the index of import prices, and then multiply by 100 as the formula. In there, we go straight to 168.7 divided by 134.2, multiplied by 100 is 125.7. Those are your terms of trade. You show all calculations. And then these are discussion questions for 8 marks. In there, briefly discuss special development initiatives, SDIs. And then here, it is very important that you are able to define SDIs. You know SDIs currently in place, and then you can give functions of SDIs, etc. SDI attract infrastructure and business investment to underdeveloped areas to create employment opportunities. The Department of Trade and Industry is a driving force. Remember, this is the interdepartmental strategy, which consists of Department of Trade and Industry and Department of Transport. And then the Department of Trade and Industry plans together with the central, provincial, and local government, IDC, parastatals, and research institutions. And then SDI refer to the government initiative and economic development potential. Initiative and economic development potential of certain specific areas where there is high level of unemployment and poverty. The key objective of SDIs are to stimulate economic activities in selected strategic locations, to generate economic growth and foster sustainable industrial development, to develop projects of infrastructure in certain areas and finance them through lending and private investment, to establish public-private partnerships, and then any other correct answer could be accepted. How would the success of NDP benefit the South African economy? Remember, National Development Plan, which is Vision 2030, aiming to achieve its objective in 2030, which is aiming at reducing poverty, reducing inequality, and creating sustainable jobs by 2030. There will be an increase in economic growth through job creation as more goods and services are produced. Living standards will improve as more people get employed, and there will be less dependence on social grants. Economic integration within and outside borders of the country will be strengthened through trade, and then quality output both in goods and services will be produced as globalization increases. There will be economic efficiency, which lead to high level of productivity and high profits. Foreign investor confidence will be boosted, resulting to investment and more production units. Any other answer would be accepted. Discuss the exogenous or mindset explanation of the business cycle. Those are outside factors that originate outside the market. And then mindset economists believe that markets are inherently naturally stable. And expansion or contraction in the economic activities is due to factors coming outside the market system. So they argue that market is inherently stable by nature. Whatever that is causing upswing and downswing is caused by outside factors or external factors that do not originate inside the market. They believe that when disequilibrium exists in the economy, market forces, demand and supply, bring the economy back into its natural state, meaning the state should not intervene to smooth the economy if it's faced by contraction. It should allow market forces to intervene, market forces to bring it back to its natural point, meaning they emphasize that if the state intervenes by smoothing the business cycle on the contraction period, it will be causing more employment and more demand for goods, which will lead to inflation. So that is to cause a problem, to solve a problem by causing another problem, which is all about the Sunspot theory. Government interference policies are not part of the normal forces operating in the market. Government policy is regarded as a external factor. Changes in the weather patterns influence mainly agriculture and affect level of economic activity in general. Technical innovation can lead to expansion of the level of production and goods and services. Any other answer was accepted, and then allocate the maximum of 4 marks for mere listing. If you list instead of discussing, you only get the maximum of 4 marks in this situation. Briefly discuss competitive and good governance as international benchmark criteria for regional development. Remember now, we go to regional development, we have about 9 international benchmark criteria that can be followed. There are nine of them. So we talk about competitiveness as well as the good governance. So industries or business establish
as a result of regional development should be competitive enough, not depending on the government for financial bailout. They should not need ongoing financial support from the government. To compete in the global markets and meet challenges of globalization, economies need to focus more on product differentiation and shorter production cycles. This would lead to greater integration between firms, both domestic and international. Greater product innovation and quality will lead to movement away from mass production or of standardized products towards manufacturing of variety semi-customized goods by skilled, adaptable workforce. Good governance. Remember, that's a government that is free of corruption. So regional development strategies should be managed efficiently and effectively, free of corruption. Domestic decisions making, transparency, financial management, principles of accountability should be in place. And control should be applied to ensure financial control. Projects should be correctly programmed, monitored, and evaluated. That's a good governance. Briefly discuss free floating exchange rate with the fixed exchange rate, meaning in that case we are discussing the difference, or we are simply providing the pure. So if we talk about the free floating, we refer to the value of a currency is solely determined by market forces, demand and supply. The government does not intervene. I have mentioned this. The government rate, the exchange rate fluctuates as market conditions change. Any differences in supply and demand are automatically corrected in the market. South Africa uses free floating exchange rate system that allows the currency to adjust to global conditions. There is no control over that currency by the government. Fixed, the government determines or pegs the value of the currency or the exchange rate against another country's currencies. The central bank buys or sells foreign exchange to maintain exchange rate in the set level. The government can devaluate the currency or revaluate the currency. There are two ways in that. Then there was 4 marks, 2 by 2 is 4, 2 by 2 is 4, you get 8 marks. Remember, if we are given such subheading to discuss, avoid discussing more in one subheading and less in another, because if you do that, you might be getting answering more on the first one while it's only 4 marks. 4 marks. So you must ensure that you answer according to the mark allocation. Evaluate the impact of export promotion on local industries in South Africa. Remember, export promotion is there to support local industries to produce more goods and sell for the local markets. Also keep it in your mind, foreign markets are bigger than local markets. So if local firms are exporting to the global or foreign markets, they will be well known. They will be able to produce more goods and services and increase their profits. They will be able to be innovative and creative because they are faced by a high level of competition globally. So they are affected positively. But then there can be some negative things that, okay, if ever they are mainly focusing on government support, if ever government withdraw its support, they will find themselves not being able to stand in the open market. Positive. Bigger export market allow local business to sell more products and generate more income revenue. South African industries may produce goods in large quantities and benefit the economies of scale. From economies of scale, the average cost production may be minimized per unit, which allows local business to export their product at the lower cost, and competitive prices. Incentive provided by the government, such as concessions and transport costs, may increase profits for exporters. Export subsidies reduce production costs and increase the competitiveness of exporting business in the international market. Local industries will become more innovative and produce better quality of products and gain competitive advantage on international markets. Any other positive side? Negative side, producers who receive financial incentive from the government may lose their creativity and innovation in terms of productive efficiency. Because remember, this support will lead to prices being distorted. Producer may have false sense of security as subsidies distort actual cost of production. They don't give the true reflection. Businesses that do not receive government financial support may find it difficult to compete. So this subsidized business will be driving out other business, which will be creating unfair competition in the global market. And then export industries may lose the market when foreign countries retaliate by imposing more tariffs. If our goods are more cheap abroad, foreign countries can retaliate by imposing more tariffs on our exported goods and services, which can lead to local business to lose their market share. And then any other answer was accepted. Each answer is, we say for goods, for positive is 4, negative is 4. So it's 4 times 2, that gives you 8. Evaluate effectiveness of GEAR as the growth policy in South Africa. We know GEAR was formed in 1996 to implement some strategies that could not succeed in RDP. So let's look. It is very important for you to know objectives of the policy before evaluation, because you can't evaluate what you don't even know. Here was successful on achieving price stability through inflation targeting of between 3 to 6%. It achieved greater financial discipline and reduced budget deficit of the country. The government introduced various economic redistribution measures to try and reduce economic inequalities. Since the introduction of GIA, the functionality of export promotion policy was evident, and the trade deficit on the current account of the bundle of payment was slightly reduced. And then we check the negative side. What is the failure now? The economic freedom for most South Africans has not been achieved. Income gaps still exist between rich and the poor, where we see rich people becoming even richer and poor becoming even poorer, even though there are some redistribution methods. Exchange rate instability remains as a major concern or challenge, which makes South African trade to be more, more vulnerable as it trade with other wealth countries, because we can afford less of the foreign country's currency and goods and services. South African financial discipline shows inconsistency since the state debts are roaming around 60% of the main budget, for which the benchmark should only be 60% and below. South African economic growth has been below 6% since 1996. And then unemployment remains as a critical challenge in South Africa, which has resulted to high level of social and economic instabilities. How can free trade policy affect emerging economies? If we talk about emerging economies, we talk about those economies that are starting to be more powerful and developing or improving. Positive, the free trade. Free trade policy opens opportunity for infant businesses or industries to expand without limitation in the foreign market. Remember, free trade occurs when businesses, when countries decide to trade amongst each other without any import restrictions. So that becomes a free trade. Free trade promotes efficient use of economic resources to infant industries, and they produce for local and foreign market, which will allow them to expand. High competition caused by free trade improve level of creativeness, innovation, as infant industries compete in wider space of market or in the global market, which are bigger than local markets. Free trade policy can result to businesses from developing countries accessing capital easily to support the production process. And then we continue with the negative effect. Developing countries are dominated by infant industries, which have a less productive capacity. They lack capital to produce for both local and foreign markets. So they can find themselves only producing for local market. They don't have enough capacity to produce more goods and services. Industries from emerging economies have less to offer in international markets as compared to industrialized economies or those countries with multinational industries. Free trade policy have an effect of shutting down the local markets because competition can be too high for local industries, since foreign competitors might have an advantage of economies of scale and mass production. Remember, they'll be producing more goods at the lower cost and selling them at the lower cost, which can be seen as dumping in South Africa, and then our firms can be closed out of the market. They can even shut down. The problem of dumping arises. Then you go straight to the section B with the time. So this is the structure. We know that the first we have introduction for 2 marks, where you define the concept related to the essay that is given to you. And then we go straight also to the body. In the body, you have your main part and your additional part. Main part is 26 marks, additional is 10 marks. Ensure that you answer according to the structure, because even the structure is provided in your question paper at the back before you go straight to the essay under section C. So remember, in this part, for the main part and the additional part. So for 26 marks, you have 8 marks for listing and examples, only maximum of 8, and then 18 is the content discussion. Remember that. And then as you answer additional part, it's very important to answer in point form but full sentences. Do not list, because we will only get 2 marks. Remember, that's the higher order question. And then in conclusion is 2 marks. In there, you mainly have to do what? You mainly have to synthesize the critical as you answer the question. As you conclude your essay, do not repeat anything that has been mentioned in the body or additional part. Ensure that there is no repetition, no examples. You become more critical as we evaluate what we have written in there, as we evaluate the topic itself. Maximum will be 40 marks for your essay. It is very important that you know your essay, because it will be boosting your confidence. So the following are the principles to write an essay. It is very important that you arrange your essay in subheadings, and then you must use point form as you answer non-paragraph forms. And then also use IMAX strategy, standing for I stand for introduction, M stand for main part, A stand for additional part, C stand for conclusion. And then remember 8 is to 18 principle, whereby 8 marks is for mere listing of subheadings and examples in your essay. 18 marks is for content discussion in your main part. The content knowledge discussion is 18 marks, like I mentioned. And then we continue. Be aware of that listing on the original part has maximum of 2 marks. I mentioned that you must not discuss. Ensure that responses you provide are enough to score maximum marks. Arrange your essay in point form. I mentioned that your conclusion should not have any repetition of either introduction, main part, body, or whatever. It should be the higher order response also. Essay should be the higher order response. And then these are the essays for paper 1, as we are dealing with paper 1. Discussing this in detail market for the circular flow in the 4-sector model, and then also discuss new economic paradigm or explain smoothing business cycle. Remember, if we talk about new economic paradigm, we talk about integrating both demand side and supply side policies in there. So it becomes the economic paradigm in that case, because we improve the demand, we improve the supply, so that price cannot increase, but the demand and supply can increase simultaneously. And then also we continue by discussing detail features underpinning forecasting. You know them, all 9 of them must be discussed. Discussing detail main objective for the public sector, 5 of them. Discussing detail reasons for public sector failure, linking them to public sector provision. And then discussing detail reasons for internal trade. Remember, we have a demand reasons and supply reasons. Economic pursuit, question number 6. Discussing detail export promotion. Remember that we have methods or approaches, advantages as well as disadvantages, or even reasons. And then discussing detailed arguments in favor of free trade. You have 9 of them. You must be able to discuss them. And then discussing detailed demand side approach in promoting growth and development. Fiscal measures, and then monetary measures and others. And then discussing detailed South African growth and development policies and strategic initiatives. In there we talk about GIA, ASVISA, GIPSA, RPP, NGP, NDP, NGP, EPWP, NSDS, Small Business Support Program, etc. Also even BEE. Discussing the South African initiative or handover to industrial development. If we talk of an handover, we talk about the method or the strategy or the approach. So in this case, we talk about ITZ, SEZ, SDIs, and corridors. Discussing detail economic indicator. That's when we talk about the likes of money supply, inflation, productivity, unemployment, and then we talk about foreign trade indicators. And then discussing detail social indicators. That's why we talk about the likes of demographics, talk about nutrition and health, we talk about urbanization and housing, we talk about education, healthcare, etc. Then let's check here. This is the essay. Discuss public sector objectives in detail, evaluate the effectiveness of South African government in attempt to achieve economic growth. That is 10 marks. Then introduction, definition of public sector. Public sector objectives are government targets that are set to be achieved at a certain period of time to ensure economic and social wellness or social stabilities. Any other definition that is correct and relevant could be given marks. Economic growth, we define it as increasing production of goods and services in a country, or increasing productive capacity of a country, increasing production of goods and services, or increasing real GDP. And then there we see it comes again. It is measured in terms of real GDP, which is GDP that has been adjusted. Real GDP refer to GDP figure that have been adjusted for inflation. It does not have the effect of inflation. And then for economy to serve social needs, economic growth must increase faster than population growth rate of a country. The growth and development of a country benefit its citizens because it often leads to high standard of living and reduced poverty. Here, NGP, ASVISA are some economic growth policies implemented by the government to pace economic growth. We continue the economic growth. Various growth policies are used in South Africa or by certain governments as attempt to achieve economic growth. These policies include growth, employment, and redistribution, new growth part, and then they're the part of those policies. And then we continue with the essay, full employment. It occurs when all economically active population that have been looking for jobs are employed. Remember, those are people aged between 16 to 65. A high level of employment is the most important objective by the government. Employment rate is measured by considering the number of people employed and economically active population. The unemployment rate increased over the past few years, reaching 34.5% in 2023. We continue. High level of employment has an effect of less demand. Of unemployment, I mean, have effect of less demand and high level of social and economic instability. The government emphasizes the support to informal sector businesses as a mechanism to reduce high level of unemployment, since people can be able to employ themselves in their own businesses. Labor-intensive industries such as agricultural industry remain as a key industry to access employment subsidies. Growth, employment, and redistribution, which is clear, a strategy was implemented to create positive climate that was conducive to employment creation by the private sector. We continue action rate stability. This refers to the action that does not appreciate or depreciate over time. So if we talk about the action rate, we talk about the currency of one country in relation to another country's currency. South Africa is using the free floating action rate since year 2000. And so it can appreciate or depreciate without limits. Depreciation of the appreciation of the currency create uncertainties for businesses, traders, and investors. It should be limited. Too vulnerable exchange rate hampers investment because investors cannot guarantee their gain. A stable exchange rate ensures a country's committedness in the global market. We continue with the exchange rate. Effective fiscal and monetary policy can be used to keep exchange rate relatively stable. Exchange rate exchange rate has a great impact on the balance of payment of the country, because remember, if ever the currency appreciates, exports can be expensive, meaning they cannot be demanded highly, which can lead to maybe imports, because the currency appreciates, the other one depreciates. Imports will be cheap, then there will be trade deficit in the BOP. Strong exchange rate increase terms of trade in the short run, but decrease in the long run based on the elasticity of demand for that particular product that is being exported. Weak exchange rate decrease the terms of trade and increase the trade surplus, as demand for exports will be increased. Other exchange rate systems include managed floating exchange rate as well as the fixed exchange rate. Price stability. So this refers to prices that do not increase or decrease over time. They are not remaining constant, but they are stable, because as they increase, they don't have much effect. Inconsistent prices make the market more vulnerable for investments, and then stable prices lead to better results in terms of job creation and economic growth. Remember, if we talk of stability, don't mean prices are remaining constant. I'm repeating myself. They can increase or decrease, but not with huge margins. South African Reserve Bank uses the inflation target of between 3 to 6% to ensure that inflation ranges within its target, does not increase beyond, does not also decrease below the minimum target of 3%. The repo rate is the main instrument used by South African Reserve Bank to achieve price stability. And then we continue. The consumer price index and producer price index are used to determine the level of prices for both consumers and producers in the economy. If inflation exceeds upper limit range, South African Reserve Bank must consider increasing interest rate to cool down the heated economy. If inflation is below its lower limit, the Reserve Bank must intervene also to ensure that economy is being stimulated. Too high inflation rate decrease the purchasing power of money and decrease aggregate demand, and also result to people becoming even more vulnerable, as they will be affording less goods and services. And then we have economic equity. Economic equity refers to reasonable division between, of income gap between people. So that means population does not have huge income gap. Capital class and working class are not that much separated by high level of income. South Africa is one of the world countries with highest economic inequalities in the world, according to the latest information of stats by the World Bank. Very few people share more economic resources and wealth, while more people share less economic resources. This is indicated via what we call the Lorenz curve. The distribution of income and wealth is measured through Lorenz curve to show the degree of inequalities as well as equalities in the world. Redistribution of income and wealth is essential to empower everyone to participate in the economic mainstream without any restrictions, because if ever income is not well redistributed, some people will remain without having income to participate in the economy. Hence, government intervene by giving some having some redistributions for people to access money so that they can be able to afford basic needs. South African government uses progressive tax system to redistribute income and wealth. That's when high income earners are being taxed more and low income earners are being taxed less, and the income is used to benefit the poor in the economy. Free social services such as basic education, primary healthcare, and the finance basic, to finance basic economic services. Social transfers are the government methods that are used to reduce economic inequalities. Legislation uses minimum wage to ensure that people are not paid below that amount of money for them to afford basic goods and services. That is the part of reducing economic inequalities. additional part, evaluation of effectiveness of government to achieve economic growth in South Africa. They have a good and a bad. South Africa's current economic trajectory is unsustainable. Economic growth has stagnated, unemployment is rising, and inequalities remain high. Since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic, South Africa has recorded drastic change in economic trend. The intense economic slump of 18% in 2020 indicated the worst ever economic decline. The slight increase in economic growth has been shaded by the massive increase in population growth rate, meaning our economic growth rate cannot afford to cover for the number of people residing in a country. South African economic growth rate has not been able to create opportunities for all because economic growth is lower than the population growth. South African economic growth has failed to create opportunities for great employment and to reduce economic inequalities. Small businesses have not been supported through public procurement. Late payments by the government to small businesses remain as a main concern. Development finance has not been made more accessible to new entrants in the market. Industrial Development Corporation. By the Industrial Development Corporation, the country has ignored long-term growth attempts such as educational opportunities and skill development in critical fields of labor market. And then we conclude the essay. In any higher order response, for example, the failure to achieve public sector objective continues to cause economic and social instabilities in South Africa. The cost of living is constantly increasing while inequalities stretches even further. Unemployment remains high and unmanageable, leaving people vulnerable. So that's your conclusion for 2 marks, and your essay is 40 marks. This one indicates, these are social indicators, just the example. If we talk about an essay saying discussing detailed social indicators, that's when we'll be talking about demographics. Remember that if we talk of demographics, you will be explaining about life expectancy, which is the number of years a person is expected to live from birth to death. And then we know that life expectancy have dropped over the past years in South Africa caused by chronic diseases increase. And then we'll talk about population growth rate, which is the percentage of growth in population over a period of time. We know that this is determined by migration and immigration, also determined by the death and birth. And then we talk about nutrition. There we have malnutrition, where we talk about the likes of obesity and underweight. So we also have the likes of obesity at the same time. So malnutrition, that's whereby children are not well fed, so it attracts more diseases and can result to even infant mortality increase. Obesity, overweight children, those are the ones that find themselves attracting even more diseases that can affect them as they grow up. It can lead to more what we call chronic diseases such as diabetes, blood pressure, etc. Health indicators. So in this case, we talk about health expenditure, which is the percentage of GDP allocated for Department of Health. We also indicate that in, South African healthcare is known to be the best in Africa. Infant mortality rate, this is the percentage of children that die before reaching 1 year, and we have seen this more regularly in South Africa. Under 5 mortality rate, these are children that die before reaching the age of 5. And then access to clean water, percentage of people in the country having access to clean and purified water. Access to sanitation, people that have access to proper sanitation. And then education, we talk about primary enrollment. This is all about the percentage of pupils at the relevant age that are enrolled in the primary school. Secondary enrollment, this is the percentage of pupils that enrolled in secondary school. But then we have seen most of the dropout in secondary school for some different reasons. Adult literacy, these are people or youth that's age between 16 to 24 that can be able to read and write. And then education expenditure, percentage of GDP that can be allocated to education. So we know that government have allocated the most of money or revenues to what we call it to education in South Africa, because it gives more priority in education as a future of South Africa. Services, we talk about electricity services. In this case, we refer to having a percentage of people accessing electricity in South Africa, which is more than 85% currently in South Africa. They have access to electricity. And then we also we talk about the government providing free electricity installments and also provide about 50 kilowatts per household on deserving communities in a monthly basis. Water provision, we talk about percentage of people that are having access to clean water. In this case, we also talk about South African government ensuring that each and every household in South Africa receive about 6,000 liters free of charge of water supply. Refuse removal, we know that it happens in a weekly basis, especially in urban areas where municipalities are collecting the garbage and also for recycling purposes. People are paying for this for municipal charges, sanitation, and then we have housing and urbanization. We talk about, in this case, percentage of people that can have access to housing. Also here, housing also gets here. Percentage of people that have access to housing. We know that housing has been given by the government since 1994 as a part of RDP program. More than 3 million houses have been handed over since 1994 in South Africa to ensure that people have access to proper shelter. Basically deserving people that can be pensioners and disabled people in South Africa. Urbanization, this is the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas for better opportunities. As urbanization increases, it results to overpopulation in rural areas and causing difficulty in provision of public goods and services that can lead to the public sector failure. It also leads to less housing available and also more informal settlement. There will be difficulty in provision of water supply as well as electricity, then lead to more informal settlements. This is the worksheet for you that you can take care of. And then memorandum is these answers that are in this, what we call this presentation. And then I will meet you again on the 30th, where we'll be doing paper 1 more intensive, and I believe this lesson will assist you as you prepare. Then on the day, on the 30th, we'll be doing the final touch of the paper 1. I believe we'll be together, and I believe this lesson will, have been having a great impact on you. And as we go on also, let's go on together. We will still have a change, or will still impact your life, impact your economics and education. Trust me, if you can follow us and be with us in whatever we do here, you will always find it easy, because you simply take the information given by our subject teacher, integrate to this, you create a revision, you then become more informed, and then you monster economics on the 31st of October this month. I thank you, and we will meet again. Bye-bye.